This is a very interesting submission because it was a general wave case done with almost no instrumentation. These are Alex's radiographs, and apparently the crown was fractured, so he did a general wave on it with almost no instrumentation at all. So it's a very good test of what the clean flow can do. Those are his notes. This is how I got the tooth. I sectioned the crown off. These are my radiographs. And then I sectioned the crown off horizontally and split the two sections sagittally and examined them under the electron microscope. So you can see the tooth was vertically fractured. So almost no instrumentation was done here with just the general wave, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of pulp still left in the tooth, and it was a necrotic tooth. So we're very interested in seeing what the general wave actually did from a microbiological perspective. That's the distal sagittal section. And when you go into these sections, it was very interesting. Although there was a lot of tissue, it was very difficult finding microorganisms. This is up near the coronal part of the mesial root, and when you go into the tooth and examine it closely, it looks like most of the predentin was pretty much dissolved, demineralized away, and actually the mineralization front showed quite a bit of demineralization taking place. When you look at these different areas and go in and look at what's actually been done, there was quite a bit of demineralization that actually took place, and the peritubular dentin was pretty much removed as well, and the mineralization front had considerable demineralization. But again, it was very difficult to find any evidence of microorganisms at all. So the general wave apparently did a fairly good job of removing. Further down the root, there was a lot more debris and predentin still present. But in the area where you could see dentinal tubules, most of the peritubular dentin was completely removed. So you'll want to go in and take a look at the images. In this area where there was, lateral canal, where there was a lot of tissue still present, when we went in and actually looked carefully at that tissue, it looked like there were some organisms present, but you have to be very careful here because fibrotic tissue can look that way as well. So I'm not making a call that those were microorganisms. When you go into areas where there was very little instrumentation, yes, there's a lot of tissue still present. And when you go and look carefully, you can see some evidence of microorganisms. But again, you have to be careful. I've drawn out where I think there are microorganisms. But I was expecting much, much more. Now, when you look at the distal root, it's kind of a different story. When you look apically and look carefully, you can see microorganisms, obviously a lot of red blood cells. But when you go into these areas, you can see a lot of microorganisms apically there. So the distal root didn't look like it was debrided nearly as much. When you look coronally in the distal root, again, a lot of demineralization of the predentin, not very much predentin at all, and a lot of a lot of microorganisms are present that you can identify clearly. And looking at various areas in the distal root, there were some areas where there was a massive biofilm evidence. For example, if you look at the side wall here, it's pretty much covered with a biofilm with EPS. And some demineralization of the predentin as well. So all in all, a very interesting case. It's kind of an ideal type of case where you can actually see what the device can do when there's very little instrumentation. And it did a pretty good job of removing the predentin, I would say, but not a good job of removing the microorganisms.